Hi there, welcome back to Aunt Vicky's. I'm so glad that you're back here, boys and girls, to join me again. Over the weekend, I had a lot of fun. I got to go with a friend of mine to the flea market across the way, and I bought a lunchbox, and I thought it was very pretty. I only gave $1 for it, so if you get to go to a flea market, please go and enjoy yourselves, and you will always find very pretty little things there. The name of my lunchbox that I got is called Bella Laura, and it says beauty comes from within. It's so true, isn't it, boys and girls? Have you ever saw someone that you thought was very pretty, but when you sit down and begin to talk with them, they didn't sound very nice? And when a person doesn't sound very nice or doesn't act very nice, they don't look very pretty. So always remember that if you really want to be pretty, if you want to be very handsome, always remember it starts on the inside with our hearts. And the better that we are inside, the more the beauty shows outside. And that's what Aunt Vicky calls true beauty, okay? Well, let's see what we have today in Aunt Vicky's magical hat box under Aunt Vicky's magical teapot. Yes, it's a story just for you. Aunt Vicky worked for a day or so on this, and I hope that you really enjoy it. I always have so much fun writing these stories, and as always, the poem gives a clue to the story. And in our story today, it's going to be about the title of it will of course be Cuddles and Spuddles, and it's going to be about Betsy's news and gossip. But there's something in the poem today that will tell us a little more about the story, and I'm going to see if you can guess the clue. Okay, let's read. Summer. Days of summer and fun are made beautiful for everyone. Time to make new friends as you swim and play, for summer does quickly pass with each new day. Soon, once again, autumn will colorfully return to us. Then children must awaken early to catch the school bus. Soon, days of summer and fun shall be over, and it shall be over for everyone. That's true. Autumn will return before we know it, boys and girls. But what do you think the clue was in that little poem about? Maybe fun? Oh, of course it's about having fun. So let's read our story. Cuddles and Spuddles. Mrs. Leafy stood counting all the tiny pigs that Mr. Leafy was placing in the barnyard. As she counted them, Cuddles and Spuddles sat on the fence rail. The pigs squealed and ran around and around their new home. Cuddles meowed to Spuddles. Why do you think they keep squealing like that? Spuddles meowed back. I don't know. They may just be excited about their new home. The twin kittens kept watching Mrs. Leafy and the pigs, and finally Mrs. Leafy asked, "Well, how many does that make?" Mrs. Leafy pointed at each new pig and said, "I counted 12 of them." "Good," said Mr. Leafy. "Then we have exactly 1 dozen. Mr. Leafy tightly fastened the gate so the pigs couldn't get out of their new pen. Then Mr. and Mrs. Leafy both decided to go indoors for a cold glass of Betsy the milk cow's fresh sweet milk. Mrs. Leafy had baked a delicious cinnamon apple pie that morning, and she thought a slice of homemade pie would make a perfect snack. Cuddles and Spuddles still sat on top of the rail beside each other, watching the pigs with great curiosity. Suddenly, Wiser the owl flew down from the big oak tree and sat with the kittens to watch the noisy new barnyard animals too. It seemed the arrival of the little baby pigs was causing quite a great stirring of all the curiosity of the animals, as one by one they came to watch and observe the noisy oink oinks. Betsy the milk cow, Cat the sheepdog, and even Marty the mama cat came to watch and investigate the new arrivals of Leafy Farm. Soon Sergeant Red the rooster came strutting by, and the pretty speckled laying hen stood beside him clucking loudly at the sight of baby pigs running about. Oh, Wiser the owl hooted, hoo, hoo, and complimented on Mr. Leafy's new pig pen. He told Cuddles and Spuddles Mr. Leafy had done a very good job building it. "What's a pig pen?" meowed Cuddles and Spuddles. Old Wiser hooted in reply, "Hoo, hoo. It's where pigs play and eat and grow up." And then the owl pointed to the trough below the fence rail and explained, "That's what Mr. Leafy will put their food in each day." The sun began lowering in the evening sky, and the rooster and the hens decided to go and roost in their nest on their perch. Betsy the milk cow wandered back into her own stall in the barn that was filled with soft hay. Cat the sheepdog went inside the farm cottage, as Marty the mama cat went across the farm road to Mr. River's little house. The twin kittens watched as the baby pigs went through a small door on the side of the barn that swung back and forth on shiny new hinges. The kittens meowed and asked, "What do pigs eat?" "Well," said the owl, "pigs eat almost anything, and they enjoy leftover food scraps, but their favorite food of all was fresh, round ears of corn stalks." Cuddles and Spuddles had seen Mr. Leafy at the pond mill house the other day grinding fresh corn, and now they knew why. It was for the baby pigs. The pigs had stopped running about and were now staring back at all the animals that were staring at them. I suppose, to tell the truth, the animals were curious about each other, and so they all just stood there staring at what seemed like hours. Old Wiser called, "Hoo, hoo," and flew back up high into the big oak tree. Cuddles and Spuddles were still playing on the fence rail as the sun went down, and they heard Mrs. Leafy as she called them from the cottage kitchen door. Cuddles meowed to Spuddles, "I will race you indoors," and she pounced down from the fence rail as Spuddles jumped down behind her. Mrs. Leafy had cooked their favorite supper, fried catfish served with warm milk. That night the twin kittens went to bed with their tummies full and the thought of new barnyard animals still on their minds. However, Sergeant Red the rooster was soon crowing, and all of Leafy Farm was now awakening to another beautiful summer day. The rooster crowed, "Cock-a-doodle-doo," until the sun was brightly shining, and as he decided to crow one last time, a very loud cock-a-doodle-doo, the baby pigs came running out into the barnyard. They stared up at Sergeant Red and wondered what on earth was that strange creature doing up there on top of the barn's big windmill, making all that noise. The pigs had never seen such an animal, and surely they thought something must be wrong. After all, he had climbed way up there and was making what they considered an awful racket, and it was just too early for all that. They began going oink, oink, and asking each other what was happening. Sergeant Red flew down from the big silvery windmill and strutted right up to the baby pigs. He fluttered his wings a bit, and then he said in a most proud and stern cock-a-doodle-doo, "I am Sir General Red the Rooster, and when I crow, the sun comes up. And it's time for everyone and all the barnyard animals to get up too." "Oink, oink, oink," said the youngest pig, which meant he didn't care too much for Sir General Red. The other pigs agreed with him, and so they all turned around, oinking all the way back to the big barn. Mr. Leafy soon started banging on the pig's feeding trough. Once more, the pigs came running outside and wondered what is going on now. But as soon as they saw the food Mr. Leafy was pouring into the trough, they forgot all about the noise and were pushing and shoving each other, trying to get to the food. Mr. Leafy poured enough food for each baby pig. He wanted to make sure they had plenty to eat, and he patted them gently on their heads as they grunted and ate. The twin kittens had followed Mr. Leafy to watch as he fed the new barnyard animals. Cuddles and Spuddles sat once again on top of the fence rail and watched the pigs oinking and grunting as they eagerly ate their breakfast. The twin kittens thought to themselves what funny-looking animals baby pigs were, and the sounds they made were sounding very odd too. Mr. Leafy had turned to get onto his tractor, and as he drove up the dirt farm road, he waved to Mrs. Leafy. Mrs. Leafy was doing a bit of gardening and was picking a few vegetables for her home-cooked soup when Mr. Rivers and Marty came across the road to visit. "Good morning," he called to Mrs. Leafy. "Isn't it a beautiful summer day?" Cat the sheepdog heard Mr. Rivers' voice, and he came out of the farm cottage because he knew Marty the mama cat would be with Mr. Rivers. Cap and Marty listened as Mrs. Leafy and Mr. Rivers talked about gardening, but they decided to go back to their favorite place on Leafy Farm, and that was down the trail to the old mill pond. All the animals on Leafy Farm loved to go down to the pond on warm summer days. The pond was called the Old Mill Pond because of the old mill house that stood next to it. The water from the pond helped grind the meal on a big table inside the mill house. There was a big wooden wheel that turned the grinder, and it spun and spinned with water out of the pond, and slowly the grinder hummed and rattled as it grinded fresh corn into meal for food. Sometimes the grinder was used for grinding wheat or barley for baking bread and cakes, but recently Mr. Leafy had used it to grind the corn for the baby pigs. Cuddles and Spuddles were still on the fence rail watching the pigs as they continued to grunt and oink. Suddenly one of the pigs came over to the kittens, and when it did, the other animals followed him. One of the pigs oinked and asked, "What kind of animals are you?" Cuddles meowed, "I am a kitten." And Spuddles meowed, "I am a kitten too." "Oh," oinked the baby pig as the twin kittens meowed, "Our names are Cuddles and Spuddles. What's your names?" The pigs began oinking and said, "Our names are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. The kittens both meowed. "What kind of names are those?" "They are number names," replied one pig with a rather high-pitched oink. Cuddles and Spuddles asked, "However did you get those kind of names?" The pig who called himself 8 oinked in a deep-sounding oink and said, "Mrs. Leafy gave them to us when we got off the truck and came into the barnyard yesterday." Cuddles just meowed in a bit confused way, but thought it's best not to say anything else about the rather unusual-sounding names. After all, she thought, if her and Spuddles wanted to be friends with the pigs, it was best not to sound like they were trying to offend them. The kittens were both so excited to have a new barnyard animals to play with, and that day Cuddles and Spuddles had one of the best times they had ever had on Leafy Farm. The following day was just as much fun, and in fact, all the rest of that week was full of warm sunshine, and the kittens and baby pigs played in the happy big barnyard. Cuddles and Spuddles had even learned each pig by its number name, and the pigs learned how to tell the twin kittens apart. Cuddles had a tiny patch of bright orange that looked like a polka dot on her front right paw, and Spuddles had one exactly like it, but on his left front paw. That night the kittens had their supper as always, but they were so exhausted from playing so hard all week long with the baby pigs that they just went straight to bed afterwards. The long, happy days in the pretty bright yellow sunshine were some of the happiest days the kittens had ever had, and the pigs were now their very best friends. Early the next morning, Sir General Red was once again crowing for the sun to come up and for all of Leafy Farm to wake up. Only this time Sir General Red was crowing out of the big barn's hayloft because it was pouring rain, and the silvery windmill that he loved to crow from was spinning in circles, and the winds were blowing. Mr. and Mrs. Leafy and Cap went outside right after breakfast, but Mrs. Leafy thought it best that the kittens stay indoors today due to the stormy weather. The kittens sat in their usual seat in the kitchen window. The rain poured down so hard that Cuddles and Spuddles couldn't see what was going on outside. But suddenly, they heard what sounded like a truck, and they could hear a man's voice that they did not recognize. Then Cuddles and Spuddles gasped as they heard the oinking sounds of their new barnyard friends. Spuddles meowed to Cuddles, "What is going on out there?" Cuddles meowed back, "I don't know, but our friends sound like they are in trouble." The twin kittens put their faces against the window pane, trying desperately to see what was going on. But try as they made, the wind and rain just made it impossible to see the big barn. Then the kittens heard the sound of a horn blow, and what seemed and sounded like a roaring of a truck driving away. Everything was quiet again now, except the rain and the wind that just kept whistling around the corners of the farm cottage. When Mr. and Mrs. Leafy finally came back in, it was already past bedtime, and Mrs. Leafy quickly fed everyone, and when the dishes were all cleaned and put away, the Leafy Cottage family went to bed. The farm cottage was now dark, with only the glow of the lamp that sat on the small table between the two big rocking chairs. Cap was sleeping and snoring on the big thick rug as always, swishing his long shaggy tail ever so often and making a gentle thumping sound as he did. Cuddles and Spuddles had a very restless night's sleep. They dreamed and tossed and turned all night long. But once again, the crowing of Sir General Red the Rooster awakened all of Leafy Farm, and this morning he was perched back on top of the big silvery windmill. He crowed cock-a-doodle-doo over and over, and this morning the sun came up as bright yellow and as pretty as any morning sunlight could be. Right after breakfast, Cuddles and Spuddles raced to the barnyard to see their friends, but when they got to the fence, the baby pigs were nowhere to be seen. The kittens meowed and meowed for their friends. Betsy the milk cow heard the kittens and decided she had best go and see about them. When she finally got all the way around the barn to where the kittens were at, Cuddles and Spuddles were meowing frantically. Besty mooed. "Now what's this all about?" she asked. The kittens ran to Besty and told her that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 were nowhere to be found. Besty mooed again and asked, "What are you two kittens counting like that for?" "Oh, Besty," meowed Cuddles, "we weren't counting. That was the baby pigs' number names." "Yes," meowed Spuddles, "that was our new barnyard friends' names." The milk cow was a bit confused about the names. After all, number names was something Besty had never heard of. The kittens could see the look on Betsy's face, and the look in her big, pretty eyes told them something was wrong. Besty hesitated for a moment after hearing the names of the kittens' friends, but she thought it best to tell the twin kittens what had happened. She mooed ever so softly and told Cuddles and Spuddles the baby pigs went to live in the big city. "What?" meowed Cuddles and Spuddles. "Weren't they happy here on Leafy Farm?" "Yes," mooed Besty, "but Mr. Leafy had a phone call from a man who wanted to buy all the pigs, and he paid Mr. and Mrs. Leafy for them yesterday, and then the man took them away in a big truck." Poor Cuddles and Spuddles sat on the ground in front of Besty the milk cow and meowed so sadly. Besty seemed to always know everything that went on at Leafy Farm, and she felt it was her job to listen and keep all the animals informed of the latest news. Besty mooed at the kittens and told them not to cry over their friends. "Oh, but Besty," meowed Cuddles, "we will miss them so much." "What kind of a place is the city for baby pigs?" meowed Spuddles. "Moo," said Besty. "Now, if you two kittens will listen, I will tell you all about your friends and their new homes." So Cuddles and Spuddles sat up on their tiny back paws and listened to Besty as she told them the news about the missing farm animals. "Your friends were not just ordinary baby pigs," mooed Besty. "They were very special." "Why were they special?" meowed Spuddles. "Well," mooed Besty, "because they are the kind of pigs that people in the big city like to have for their pets." "For pets?" meowed Cuddles. "Yes," mooed Besty, "and they will live in a nice home and be given very pretty names just like you two." "But," meowed Spuddles, "we wanted them to stay here and be our friends." Cuddles meowed and agreed with Spuddles. Besty mooed gently and softly, seeing the sad look on the twin kittens' faces, and she said, "Now let's be happy for your friends." The twin kittens meowed that they would try, but that they would never forget how much fun they had with their new friends in the big barnyard. "It's always good to remember happy times," mooed Besty. Then she mooed again and asked if they knew how to keep a secret. Cuddles and Spuddles both nodded their heads. Yes, very excitedly. Then Besty told them of the latest gossip. There were to be more new barnyard animals arriving very soon. Cuddles and Spuddles were now pouncing up and down with joy. The speckled laying hens were sitting on eggs that had tiny little chickens inside of them. And before long, the baby chicks would begin to peck at the eggshells, and off they would go. And then Cuddles and Spuddles would have lots of new barnyard friends. The kittens followed Betsy the milk cow all over the pasture that day as she grazed about, and they meowed and mooed, talking about the new arrival of the baby chicks. After all, mooed Betsy, that's what you call little chickens. Suddenly, Betsy had a great idea. As she looked at the kittens, she mooed. Maybe you two should think of some pretty pet names for the barnyard baby chicks. Yes, meowed Cuddles and Spuddles, we will do that. That night, as the twin kittens snuggled down to sleep once more in their soft crate box bed, they didn't have any bad dreams at all. In fact, they dreamed about beautiful pet names for pretty baby chicks. Yes, once more, night had settled in on Leafy Farm, and that night it did not storm, and instead a big milky white full moon shined brightly down all over the farm, and it seemed as though the stars twinkled lower than ever in the sky above. They twinkled so low that it seemed you could just almost reach up and touch them. Somewhere off in the dewy summer night, if you listened closely, you could hear a milk cow named Betsy mooing in a whisper ever so soft and gentle, as sweet, nighty night. Oh, boys and girls. Wasn't that cute? Aren't we happy that the little pigs got to go to the city and that they're going to be pets and they're going to be happy? Have you ever been to the city and saw people walking their little pigs like they were like little dogs or kittens? Well, they do, and they are so cute. Maybe someday Aunt Vicki can get a picture of some and bring and show them here to you, boys and girls, so that you can understand if you haven't seen them. But once again, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me. I hope this has really been fun, because it's been a lot of fun for Aunt Vicki. I hope that you will stay safe as always, and remember, keep plenty of things to drink on hand, because it is summer and you can get dehydrated very easily. And as always, as Aunt Vicki says, a sweet nighty night. Goodbye, boys and girls. See you next time.